I'm hoping the light is alright today. I've just brought up my black. I folded it in 4. Right, so, you know, if that is the width of it, folded in half, and I folded it in 4. And this is, I'm just showing you best practice of how I cut my strips, because I'm asking you to try and use the strip method, because it just makes life so much easier. Now, I'm using a cutting board by Creative Grids. This is called the Stripology XL ruler. Alright. What I tend to do is on the fold, I'll keep, just a minute, yeah, I'll use one of the lines across the top to be the top, and I'll shift it over, and I know I cut this quite nicely before, but pretend I haven't, so you've got a ragged edge one side. Then the first thing you want to do is take a very nice rotary cutter and cut on the 0, 0 line all the way up. Now, of course, you can do this with so just take the strip off of there. Of course, you can do this with a long ruler, but I just find it so much easier for me if I do it with a grid ruler like this. It keeps everything in a straight line because you're going through a grid, and also, you know, you're literally reading it off simple numbers at the bottom. So for the next block, which you've not seen yet, I want to have 3.5 inch strips. Remember, we've got to make it 8. So this is the entire width of fabric from selvage to selvage. So it's gonna go well. So I am cutting a 3.5 inch strip. Okay, and I'm going to do it twice. So that means a 7 inch strip on my ruler. So I've done it twice. Now, I think that's going to be enough to get on with. I might have to cut some more, but that's enough to get on with. So from 7 inches, I also want, say for example, with the tropical fern, I wanted 2 inch strips. So from 7 to 9. So I can cut a couple of, so 9 and then 11. I can cut, while I'm here, a couple of 2 inch strips that are going to work with me for the tropical fern one as well. Okay, so this is how I cut my strips. I'll just plop that back and I'll show you what I do with the other colours. So there's a 3.5, there's a 3.5, okay, there's a 2, and there's a 2, yeah? And it is the entire width of the fabric that we can then cut down to the strips, the lengths that we want. And this is the easiest way of working, yeah? And this is what cuts down on your waist, all right? So you check your pattern and you think, well, what's the widest I'm going to need, and cut your strips to accommodate. Right, so you have not seen this colour before. It is one that we're going to use on the Tiger Lily block, and this is going to be on a block that you have not seen so far. But yet again, I do need, no matter what, in this fabric, I've just taken off my 0, 0, get rid of that. And so now I've got a really good cut line this edge, and I'll come back 3.5 inches, 7 inches, and I'm going to do one more, 7, 1, 2, 3.5, so 10.5. I'm doing 3 on that one for now. I can get rid of the actual fabric, and then put that down here. Then I've got, this is another set of 3.5 inches that is going to work for me. And I'll put that to one side. And then the last fabric is, what would you call this? Would you call it, I'm calling it marine. You may call it petrol blue. I don't know. It is a green, really, rather than a blue. But I just think it works so well in contrast with this aqua, or turquoise, yeah? So, yeah, again, I got so much of this. Although I should have bought more, because I do really love it. So, let's take the widths of it, and I'm going to fold it in 4. Fold it in 4 on my table. Okay, and I've never cut it before, so I have got a bit of a scrag end here. Get my Creative Grids ruler out again, and put a line across the bottom actually on this one. I think I'm going to use. My nice fold is down the bottom. So square it up with a fold on the bottom, and then yes again I am going to take a cut, and I want it 3.5 inches wide and 7 inches wide. That gives me 2 lots. Now I don't need very much of this, so in fact that's probably overdone it, but I've now got 2 strips that are 3.5 inches wide to go with this, and to go with the black, yeah, which are going to be the colours for what I'm calling a crocus block a bit later in the quilt. That's my best practice of how I cut strips so that I'm not wasting. So moving on from the way I cut the strips, which again with this one, yeah, the 3.5 is going to work, okay. You can try doing it slimmer, but if you run into hot water, don't blame me, right? But how I work when I'm off camera is, obviously I don't jump up and down every time I want to cut a piece of block, cut a piece of this. So I'm not using paper anymore. I'm using the tracing paper, as you know, but I've got this spare one which I was halfway through, so I use this for demo purposes. I take over to the sewing machine, yep, a small cutting, you know, pad. The material that I want to use for it, my rotary cutter and my add a quarter here. So I don't know where I am on this one. Oh yeah, so I have just, this is the wrong colours now, I've changed my colours, this is why I stopped doing it. So I just added that, oh, and also my pin cushion, alright, with my pins in it. So I take all that, and to the right of my sewing machine I've got a nice workspace where my ironing pad is. I've got a wool ironing pad and an iron, but it's quite large space, so I can just push back the iron and put this on top of the wool pad to use it. So it's to the right of me. So once I started going, and the next thing I would be doing obviously on this one is sewing from here to there, yeah, and then when that's sewed I'd be moving it forward, and then I would be taking my add a quarter to cut it, you know, to cut off this edge of it, yeah, with my what have you, and then I would have the next strip, the next colours ready to add on, and I would do all of this to the right of my sewing machine, so I don't actually get out of my chair. And then when I got it done, you know, when I got it fixed with pins, I then put it under the machine, sew it, and move on to the next bit. And so I make myself a little nest, if you like. I'm very lucky because if my sewing machine is there right in front of me, then this workspace is to the right of me, so this can all go on that workspace, and so I can move the pattern from the machine to my workspace to continue doing this. So I don't actually get out of my chair until it's done. The only time I get out of my chair and come back to my workbench as such is when I want to cut the outside lines with a long ruler. Then I come back and do it. But that's how I work, and obviously it's very quick. I'm not moving. I'm just swiveling my chair slightly and cutting it and putting it and pinning it and sewing it and cutting it and pinning it and sewing it, and it just works really, really well for me. So that was just a bit of a heads up of how I work when I'm not on camera.